I'm so excited to introduce our next competitor, Matthew Winton, obviously World Brewers Cup champion. More than anything, great mate. We've known each other for a while, and we feel, all of us in Ona Coffee in Project Origin, we feel very connected with your amazing win. And obviously, today we'd love to talk with Matt about his competition journey, a little bit about his coffee journey, how he got into the coffee, and why he started with the coffee. But Matthew, I'd love to welcome you to our show. Hope you're going well.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here, Sasha, and great to see you again. It's awesome. I kind of wish that I was down there in Australia right now. It's very cold over here in Europe and very grey, and I've heard it's very warm and sunny down there.
It's actually been 30 degrees. Just finished my lovely summer run. Excited to talk to you today about your story, and kind of more than anything else. I'm curious if you can take us all through a little bit. You're obviously from Australia. We can, I remember that when we were discussing earlier, before coffee, you were in army. You started coffee in Europe, I believe, or you started coffee in Australia. Is that
Pretty much in Europe, started working properly. There was a time in Australia just after I left the military, and I've spoken about this on a couple of other podcasts, which you could catch up on, like the Sub-Zero one or Nicole, she's a barista one, where we spoke a bit more in depth about the army time and all of that stuff. And basically, I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I had a job as I was doing bartending, a couple of hours a week as a barista. On top of that, I was full time building helicopters. I even had a dog training business, a little bit of DJing on the side. Just tried to do everything just to figure out what I wanted to do. And at some point, of course, I burnt out and couldn't do everything at once. But I think the barista stuff really bit me. I ended up moving to Europe in the start of 2016.
okay?
And I was essentially just contracting. So I was moving around place to place with my aircraft engineering background. So I was fixing airplanes and helicopters, just going, 6 weeks here, 8 weeks there. And I ended up in Zurich, of all places, in Switzerland. And it was a beautiful, sunny summer's day. And I just wanted to stay. I remember walking down to the lake, and it was like this beautiful blue sky and the mountains in the background. And I was like, oh, I could stick around for a little while. And I walked into a local cafe and asked them if they had any jobs going. And the guy was like, oh, you're Australian, you're a barista. Yeah, come in, come in, come in. And I sat down and he fed me some espressos, and I ended up just picking it up from there. But to be honest, at the time, I really wasn't that good. I don't know why he gave me a job, but I sort of like, that was where I got the bug, got bitten by the bug sort of thing. Like that was where I would go to work and I would be listening to podcasts just like this one, just for like the whole time setting up. And then I would be making coffees all day and just like experimenting and figuring out what I was doing right and doing wrong. And then go home and, researching stuff online, looking at videos and attending expos and things like this. Anything just to suck up more knowledge, I think. And at some point along that, then I also got interested in competition. I think it was more the Tamper Tantrum podcast from Steve and Colin, and that they always had competitors on. Colin had competed in the past, and everyone was talking about this competition stuff. So I knew that there was something to it, but I didn't really know what it was or how to do it. But it seemed like that was a really good way to sort of say that you were, professional. It was like that was like the next obvious step to me, at least. Um, Not like a shortcut to having like some authenticity, but that was like a way of achieving some sort of status, I suppose, like making you reputable in the industry. And I decided to compete for the first time in 2018 in Sweden. It was a little while ago.
So 2018, you represented Sweden. You worked for Drop.
Yeah, so I was working in Switzerland,
Okay.
and then I went up to Sweden because I'm actually half Swedish, so half Australian, half Swedish.
Okay.
And so I have the Swedish passport, and I think the guys up there were a bit confused that this like weird Australian guy came up and was from Switzerland and then won the competition. It was a little bit funny, But after that, I actually ended up moving to Stockholm, and I lived there for all up about 6 months. And I was working with Drop Coffee then with Joanna and Steve, and it was amazing. It was super, super nice. And we got to go to the World then in Amsterdam in 2018. That was my first ever competition. And I think I did pretty well. I finished 8th in the world that year. It was super, super fun. I did this routine about multi-sensory perception of taste and flavor. There was lots of like colors and touching and listening and stuff. And it was a lot of fun, really a lot of fun. I had this Wash Catura from Colombia. Nothing special, fancy, just a really good coffee. I really liked it. It scored very well in the espresso course, but the and signature was okay, but my milk was absolute trash.
Okay. All right. So I'd love to go back a little bit. Why coffee? Why did you choose coffee over helicopters or all the other things that you were working? Like, what's that thing that grabbed you to go, well, this is why?
I don't know. I think when I finished this contract here in Zurich in June 2016, I had, so many options. Like I could have gone for another contract. I could have found a job in a bar. I could have done something totally different. And I think very easily it could have been alcohol and bartending, because that was something else I was really interested in. I think it was more this act of service. Like it was like being of service again. So with aircraft, of course I was of service. I was freaking building and repairing the things. And like you get some feedback of like, okay, I did a good job because, now the passengers can board and the aircraft can go and they're at their destination on time and everyone's happy. But with coffee, it was like an immediate thing. Like I smile at someone, ask them how they're doing, give them a flat white that's nice and tasty, and then they're happy immediately.
Yep.
So I really like this thing of being of service.
You could witness that, right, as well. You can kind of see how they feel. It's actually very similar. Was it taste at the beginning? Like, were you excited with the taste of coffee? It was more connection with the people and sharing these emotions?
More the job and being with the people.
Yeah.
I'd never worked in a job with people so much.
Yeah, I actually share the same. I think I've been making coffee for a couple of years without even drinking it or tasting it and enjoying the taste. And then suddenly after 2 or 3 years, oh my God, this tastes like fruit. Can coffee taste this good? And and I was already making coffees for like 2, 3, 4 years. And before I go, wow. And then there was a kind of second layer, obsessed with the flavor. But that's not the main reason. So
actually, the first specialty coffees that I had were pretty incredible. There's or at least there used to be a little shop in Brisbane called Reverend's.
Yes.
I don't know if you know it. There's a guy there who used to work in coffee, Jacob Denaro. He's an absolute legend. And he was the first person who ever taught me anything. I did like for about a month, every Monday, I would rock up to the cafe there and he would show me stuff and teach me how to do a filter and steam milk and stuff. First coffee he ever gave me was a natural Ethiopian that they called Purple Haze. I don't remember who the roaster was of that one. This was in 2015.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, amazing.
Joe Uncle or something like that. They won a few Golden Bean competitions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it was absolutely awesome. And then the second coffee I ever had from him was a filter of a natural anaerobic Ethiopian. Like in 2015, sort of before all of this kicked off. And it was absolutely insane. So that was my exposure to coffee, just this big bombs of flavor. So I think I chased that for a little while. And then ever since doing the Q graders here in Zug, with Gloria, I've started to realize like there's this whole other element of coffee that can be very subtle and be very good without scoring super high, crazy points, like insane flavors. So I'm starting to understand this other side of things, and also with like different species. I'm planning on doing the Q Robusta in January as well, understanding what other flavors are out there that aren't this necessarily super loud, super bright, very floral, very fruity, whatever. It's super cool.
Awesome. That's so nice to hear. Yep. I think Gloria has done an amazing job for that community, worldwide community, especially in Switzerland. I do remember after, I won WBC and she kind of sent me an invite. Hey, can you please come to Switzerland, do the workshops? We'd love to have future, Switzerland finalists or champions, but I guess the amount of success Switzerland had in the last quite a few years on the world stage, it's been incredible. So I think we're going to be starting to ask people now from Switzerland to come to Australia and other countries to do workshops for us. But it's a big credit to, I guess, all of the people behind that, have had that vision to keep supporting people. So I guess quick hi to Gloria if she's listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mad shout outs to
yeah,
Gloria.
absolutely.
Hopefully you get to see her soon.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, first competition in 2018. I remember, your routine. You considering it's the first competition ever. You have not been making coffees for that long. I found that very very impressive routine. I also remember when I was talking to you, like I said, oh, this guy is very motivated. He's very keen, but like he's really eager. Like he's like passionate. Maybe too passionate, too upfront. Very
100%.
yeah. So and maybe in these competitions, as you matured in a coffee, like how do you think that competitions have changed you as a person, not necessarily as a in the coffee knowledge, because obviously the more you compete, the more knowledge you get. But do you think that it made an impact on you personally in all these years of competing?
I think actually it was almost the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like me as a person changed how I presented in competitions.
Yeah.
So definitely in 2018, I was this, super young, immature, full of energy, full of passion, like you said. And I think it was all like this really like bubbly, like sort of a bit all over the place. And I wasn't so grounded.
Yeah.
And so
can you explain
from that
can you explain what it means not so grounded? Just like why are you saying that?
I mean, I think since even when I'm watching it on stage, like watching that routine, that's a pretty obvious thing. I was just like high in my voice. I was just like scattered all over the place. And that was just the sort of energy that I had that whole 3 days in Amsterdam. Just lots of very, very high energy. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to just interact with everyone, see everything that was going on, lots of energy. And then I think when I look at that routine and then I look at 2019, where I'm just like calm, like, yeah, cool, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. And that was like, I think a lot more the direction that I've gone now in my life. And I think that's why I say it's more like the life is represented on stage, not the stage has changed my life. So at like the end of 2018, start of 2019, I went through some very big hardships internally in myself and sort of struggled for a few months there with some things going on internally. And through 2019, I managed to sort of work through those, and they changed me a lot. Going from peaks of depression to then, coming out the other side and having what for me feels like essentially a new life. Like it's by the time of the end of 2019, I felt like a completely different person to the start of 2019. Obviously, the world's competition in Boston was about the middle of it, so that caught me somewhere in between. But it was definitely somewhere where I didn't want to have this like crazy do everything sort of thing in competition anymore. But I had something that I wanted to do. I was doing it, and I didn't want to sort of show off anymore. I was happy just to go through the motions and still bring people like the judges along this beautiful journey and a great experience, but maybe do it in a little bit more down to earth way. And then I think with the competition for brewers again this year, it's taken another step down. And normally people have to tell me to chill out a little bit and not speak so fast. And then now Sammy was like, "Yep, come on, bring the energy, bring it up."
Yeah, okay. So I think it's a very common pattern in God, if I can say with all of us or all of the people that have been competing. You like first year when you compete, it's overwhelming. You just want to meet everyone, you want to talk to everyone. Maybe kind of interrupting some people, or maybe being too much. It's sometimes without even realizing. But possibly, as you mentioned, it reflects the routines that we start, because we just look around and we say, oh, this is really cool, I might do this, or this is cool, I might do that. So possibly getting inspiration from outside rather than looking deep down in you. And as you get mature in I guess in competitions, in life or whatever, like then it's becomes a lot more important what's inside of you. Kind of I always say, like, dig deep and see what's really important for you, because no one can be in the world, Matt Winton, and only you can be best version of yourself. And in order to do that, like, you obviously need to dig deep in your values, in your purpose, in why you do what you do, and and hopefully when you present something that it makes sense why you're also speaking slower, because you're feeling these emotions and you're kind of letting it out, as opposed to just rehearsing something and kind of just in a head and remembering and sending it off. But I've also realized that a lot of people that in order before they can do something significant like you did, winning a Brewers Cup championships, when we listen to their stories, what happened maybe 12 months earlier or 16 months earlier is a crisis, and for some people, biggest crisis in their lives. And somehow, and we obviously it's your private thing. We're not going to be sharing that in the public, but I think a lot of people will be interested when someone has a crisis and when has a big challenge. What do you do? Like, what did you do to overcome this crisis?
No, that's a great question. I just got shivers. It's super nice. Like I'm, yeah, by now, but most other people maybe don't. But I'm a very spiritual person. I really like to live in this sort of holistic way. I meditate daily, 20 minutes twice a day, no matter what. That was also happening during the competitions and stuff. And without this side of me, this sort of spiritual aspect of acknowledging that there's more to life than just being a bag of flesh, then that's helped me overcome a lot. I think the meditations have helped a lot, and I think finding value in friendships and in connections with myself, with other people, just seeing the beauty in everything, and this whole process of living very holistically and just being the fullest version of myself and embodying myself, all of my flaws, all of my good parts, just loving everything about me was the biggest change from being this peak depression of just like not being able to feel anything really, and not being able to feel love and not knowing where I belonged in the world. Yeah. It was a really, really hard time for a few months, but I had this great support network around me of friends who accepted me for where I was and kept on reminding me like, yeah, hey, look, you are loved, you are, you're okay, you're right, we're right here. I ended up moving back to Zurich after that from another place I was living. And it wasn't the place, but I just sort of like felt felt lost, very lost for a little while. By the time I came back to Zurich, it felt really good to be here. I had all of my friends around me. I had this great team of people, and like 2019 ended up being one of the best years of my life, but simultaneously one of the worst. Started to value the friendships that I had and made all of these new friendships as well. And I had this group of people around me that kept me very motivated, that made me feel very loved. We would just, spend all our time together. And they weren't all necessarily coffee people either.
Okay. So I was going to say, are they coffee people or not necessarily, just people?
Some were, yeah. Some were coffee people that we worked with all together. There was a crew of about 4 of us who worked together all of 2019, and we're thick as thieves. We're just super tight now. And now even some of those guys are starting to compete as well. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing the things that I learned in the competitions with them now that they want us to compete in both Barista and Brewers Cup in a few different countries. It's super, super cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I think the overcoming these things was a matter of like knowing it's a process. So understanding the process and trusting that it's not going to be forever, giving yourself lots of love and time, and then also having a way of getting out of it. I think those 3 things were very important for me, in that I knew that, okay, I feel like shit. Everything sucks. What's the point in everything? I'm going to be compassionate with myself and not be too hard on myself, but I'm still going to have a way out of it of like, okay, cool. If I do this, then that's one step closer to where I need to go. And then that's enough for today. Yeah. And that's also how I deal with things in competition sense. When I have these off days, and all about the off days where just nothing works, you're dropping shit, you can't speak. And like I had one of those in Milan, like I think it was on Thursday night or Friday night, maybe before the competition started on Sunday. And I couldn't for the life of me pour accurately and speak at the same time. And the coffee was tasting great. And Sam and Tom were doing such a good job. They had everything, and they were like giving me the perfect things that I needed to make an awesome coffee and perform on stage. And I just couldn't fucking speak and pour. It just like did not work in my head. And I was just so frustrated and just like fully down for a few hours. And I think whenever I find those moments, I just go like, okay, cool. I just need to do something now to get back on track. I'm okay, cool. Having a shit day, dropping everything, whatever. Acknowledge that. And then if I'm like here, for example, back in Zurich, what I would do is just do something really simple. Like, okay, cool. I know I need to book my flights or book my accommodation. Cool. Let's go online, book something, just do something to make it not a totally useless day, and then call it a day after that. So do something small and then, okay, cool, relax, take the rest of the day off. And it's all about mindset at that point, how to bounce back from that. And then it was the same in Milan. So I think what I did then was I knew that it was so close to time, so I needed to fix this. So I ended up like not doing any more tastings the rest of the day. I stayed back like a few hours. The other guys went and got food or something. They just went in the room for a little while, and I just poured water onto nothing and just practiced pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. And it wasn't like hugely mental, but just like needed this time just to practice and all right, do this a few times. And it was like, cool. All right, let's take the rest of the evening off, go relax, chill out. But yeah, there's always these points that come up, and I think it's how you deal with them, not if they come, because they will come, right?
They will come. Yeah, it's kind of, as you mentioned, number one, we need to not ignore it, but recognize it's here, and then having that process with your experience, what's the now best way to go through it. But I've spoken with quite a few people that have had a lot of challenges, and like for me personally, 2014 was the biggest and most challenging year in competitions. I don't think I was thinking I'm gonna quit and I'm not gonna compete, but I was like definitely thinking I don't belong here. Like I just keep going to these comps and I just keep making these mistakes, and kind of for how long and how far. And then when the issue is, then when you start doubting yourself, then everything goes down the hill after that. So it's as you mentioned, it's important to surround yourself with the people that actually trust you and believe in you, because at that time you don't believe yourself. But then if you have these true friends, and that's when true friendship comes up, or mentorship, or whatever it is, and they kind of cheer you up and they pick you up. They kind of trust you more than what you trust in yourself as well. At least for me, there was that experience, because back then I didn't trust myself at all, and and then when something bad happens, but then beauty with that is once you go through this cycle and once you go through this biggest crisis, then when another big crisis come, and it can be just bigger, it's just number, I guess, you know what the process is and what you need to do to deal with it. It's kind of good to be aware that they will come, and if next one comes in the same volume, you're not going to feel it because you trained for it, but it's obviously going to come in a bigger volume that's going to hit you, and at least you're going to be a lot more ready for it as well.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all a process, that pattern. But it's so key. I think, especially that's advice that I give a lot of competitors, because you do have those days, and I love it when I get a message from someone who's competing and training, and they're like, "Fuck, man, I just had one of those days." I love it, because it means that they're reaching out. They're like, "Hey, I'm acknowledging this. I'm expressing it." Come back a little bit of like, "All right, cool. What's something small you can do?" I don't know, pack my suitcase. Cool, do that. Pack your suitcase. That's it. Done. All right, cool. Now go home and relax and chill out, and that's it.
So 2019, you competed in Brazil. No, sorry, not Brazil.
Boston.
Yeah, in Boston, correct. Yes, Boston. I think you finished number 7.
Yeah, 7th that time.
Almost made it to the finals. How did that make you feel? Like it's tough being number 7. It's not easy. And was that discouraging,
no,
or it's okay? Like I'm just keep going.
Hey, I had the goal of doing better than I did last year.
Okay.
So nice. I got better than I did last year. So I wasn't upset at all.
That's
after I performed in the semis, I gave that everything I got. I did the best that I could have. I was enjoying myself. I was happy. I knew the coffee was super tasty. I don't think I could have squeezed anything else out of that routine and that coffee.
Yeah.
So whatever happened after that, I was like, okay, cool. I'm totally going to accept this, because there's nothing else I could do. But also, man, when I did make finals, I was a bit like, oh, fuck, bugger. Like, I wonder if I did something wrong.
Yeah.
But like, I did wrong things in the first round, for example. Like, I had a couple of coffees in different lots, different roast profiles. And like on the very first round, the very first day in the training in that hour, you sort of select which coffee you're going to use. And the very first one I tasted, I was like, oh, that's not good. Let's put that aside. Not that one. And that was like lot number 1 or whatever. And then I kept going and blah, blah, blah. And then I chose it and it was number 2A or whatever it was. And then for some stupid reason in that first round, while I was prepping my doses, I had competition brain. I grabbed the very first lot 1, the one I didn't want to use. And I ended up serving that in the first round. And fuck, when I realized that, I was just like kicking myself. Like, this rot was roasty. It was like really not underdeveloped, but it was like sour and roasty at the same time. It wasn't so good at all. And I was just like, oh, well, there it is. I guess I'm out 30th place. Who cares? Whatever, this sucks. But then ended up having a second chance to go to semis. They didn't hate the coffee too much. So, you know, it wasn't so bad after that. Then it was like, all right, well, if I fucked up this badly, maybe after this I get a second chance, and then whatever happens.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it was really okay to finish 7th. So I didn't mind it at all.
Absolutely. And you know, I love your attitude when you say that when you go there and compete, like no matter whether it's your first year of competition or third or fifth year, in ideal scenario, you want to be better than what you've been 6 months ago or 12 months ago. And in most ideal scenario, when you finish presentation, you call your time and say, wow, I've done my absolute best. Like, if you have that feeling,
yeah,
it's a beautiful feeling.
I think even the feedback there was overwhelmingly positive. Like, the only problems that they had was that the coffee didn't taste like I described it.
Yeah.
So then it's like, all right, cool. How can I fix that for next time? I've got an idea now of what sort of a coffee I want to take next time. And definitely get it roasted by someone that isn't myself. Or maybe I'm better now, but I roasted the first one and it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
In 2019, I roasted for myself, and that was definitely a mistake.
Yeah.
It just, I thought it was good, but it wasn't as good as I thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. So finish Barista Comp. What made you think to do Brewers following year?
I mean, yeah, this is going to sound a little bit arrogant, I think, but it was the idea of taking a year off of Barista.
Yeah.
And that was the whole idea of doing Brewers. It was just like, all right, I'm going to take a year off. And then I was like, all right, well, I still want to keep on learning. So I decided to do Brewers just for fun.
Yeah.
And I think what ended up happening was that I just really got into it.
Yep.
There was a whole other world. And to be honest, I didn't think I was that good of a brewer in 2019. Like, Emmy just won the world in 2018, and I was working with her a lot, and I could see her knowledge was really high, and I was like, man, I'm just not getting the same results as her. Why is that? Like, you know, what am I doing wrong? So that was, I think, the main motivation for doing Brewers over just taking a total year off.
Yeah.
And as I started to get into it, it was like, okay, there's something in this now. Like, now I see that this is really interesting and this is really cool and there's a lot to learn. So that was the main motivation. And then, yeah, once I won Swiss, it was like, all right, cool. Now I want to do something properly. Yeah.
Okay, so you won Swiss. You were ready to do something properly for the Worlds. What does that mean? Like, what's kind of in your world? What was going through your head? What are the stages? What are all of these different elements in order to compete in the highest level in Brewers competition required?
Oh man,
to do something.
Yeah,
properly?
it's a hard question to summarize, because I went from, you know, it started in like December 2019.
Yeah.
Competition was in February 2020 here in Switzerland. Then lockdown hit. Then there was the full year of like the competition's on, the competition's off, the competition's on, the competition's off. And then in like, when was it? July, I think, that host was announced. And then it was like, go, 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 go. And so many things changed in that year. Like, I had the idea of blending from the start. That was something that was like, all right, from the very start, I want to blend. And I was looking for coffees to do blending. So that was something that stuck with me since like March.
Yeah, why did you want to do blending? Because it's not very common, as we all know, in a Brewers Comp. And I'm not kind of questioning you why, because I completely agree and it makes a lot of sense. But why in your head you thought blending was a way to...
Yeah, I mean, the things that I saw was that there was coffees that I had access to and had tasted, and people were like, "Yeah, this would be a great coffee for competition," and I was like, "Yeah, it's really good, but I don't like this thing about it."
Yeah.
Or then like testing a few other coffees, I'm like, "Oh, this would be great if it had that." So then I thought it might be as simple as taking coffee A, this mega fermenty coffee that had lots of brightness, lots of acidity, really like crazy coffee, and then just adding something more delicate to bring it down. But that didn't work because that even just like 2 grams in a brew of something very funky and fermenty meant that the brew tasted funky and fermenty. So that was a lesson that I had to learn. Then I was playing around with a few different coffees, and then I eventually found this La Florida, the Catucaí, the CM washed,
Mm-hmm.
and just fell in love with the taste profile of that. I even went up to Copenhagen at one point. I was with Patrick Rolfe, who came second in the world in 2019 in World Brewers, and he's a good friend of mine, and we were talking and tasting all these coffees, and he was like, "Man, just take this. This is really exceptional. Like this is a great coffee and would score very highly. And I don't think you couldn't win the worlds with this. Like it's exceptional." But there was something in the back of my head that said, that's like almost too easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it did have a lot of great qualities, but it didn't have a lot of heaviness. And this is something that Sam and I spoke about a lot. In do we blend? Do we not blend? What are we doing? What sort of results are we looking to get in the end? But basically, that coffee had all of the top end. It had all of this acidity, had very unique flavors,
Yeah.
had awesome body, but the body wasn't heavy. It had sweetness, but it wasn't like a rich sort of a sweetness. It was just like, in the end, lots of flavor and like this top end. And then we were looking for coffees to fill up the bottom end. So basically, instead of trying to take something that had almost everything and add one thing, we had something that was just top, and then we were looking for the coffee to be just the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we started off with a few coffees like the Astral from Finca Deborah,
Yep.
which I find absolutely incredible. It's a stupidly gorgeous coffee. I love that one a lot. And that paired really well with the Catucaí. Sam said he tried a few other coffees. I can't remember exactly which ones. Maybe like Finca Neguo, again, Panama Geishas, that were very like more on the fermented side, but not fermenty, just like had a lot of body and character to them.
Yep.
And that brought a really interesting flavor. And then I remember the day that he tried the Eugenioides, and I woke up to like a missed call from him and you and messages and like all of this stuff that he tried the Catucaí with the Eugenioides, and was just like, "Man, this is it. This is crazy." And then I think as we started to explore that, I had no idea what it would taste like. I didn't have the Eugenioides in front of me. It was just all hands, coming from Sam being like, "Hey, this is awesome."
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
I couldn't have imagined it because I never liked Eugenioides, and to this day I'm still not the biggest fan of it alone in a brew. I know that it's very unique and stuff, but I wouldn't drink a cup for myself. But it took such a long time to think, how the hell would this like soft, delicate thing pair with something that's just pure sweetness and body?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, Catucaí has this kind of vibrant, kind of almost that champagne sparkling, like really nice bright acidity, a lot of unique kind of green notes in a cup, like eucalyptus or mint, or with like super sweet citrus characters as well. And then, but yeah, it's kind of sort of juicy coffee, while UG is very creamy, very lactic,
super
texturally driven coffee, and obviously with the fermentation that we've done with yeast and non-yeast, like kind of gives you this sort of red characters and everything else. So or tropical notes. So yeah, I think blending for coffees is it's kind of selecting what you like, as you mentioned, or something that you're really in touch with, and allow these things to be celebrated. And but also have another element, another coffee that can kind of not necessarily cover the weakness, but just make coffee even more powerful, and fill up the empty gaps where we feel that empty gaps are, whether it's aftertaste or body or whatever it is. From hot to cool, coffees change a lot, as we know. So it's the entire journey that gives you another, I guess, ingredient in your recipe when you're cooking, that you can balance it how you wish. But I'd love to go back, Matt, because I mean, if you can share, how did you start working with Sam? How did that all happen?
Of course I knew of Sam a long time ago. He's very prominent in the industry, but he doesn't sort of go loud on social media or anything. I think he's barely on there except for a few bottles of wine. A lot of bottles of wine.
Yeah, that's more accurate.
So
yeah.
yeah, drink wine with me is his main Instagram account. No, I met him first when I was in Australia in 2018. I came to the roastery there just for an afternoon. I was on the way from Melbourne up to Sydney. And Gus, the absolute legend, I stayed at his place that night. He hosted me and went out for dinner with Maddie Lewin and Gus. Sam was floating around at the roastery, and we just sort of like nerded out about coffee for a few hours. That was, in end of 2018, so before I even won 2019 Swedish. That was super cool. Then Sam also came to Switzerland in 2019. I think it was just after Worlds in Boston. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember the timeline of that one too well. And, we went out to dinner then as well. That was really nice. He was with his family, so I got to meet all them. Super cool, really great. So I got to know him a little bit better then. And when I won the Swiss Brewers, I just thought that it was going to be in Melbourne, and he was the best person that I could think of to help me. At the start, I wasn't really thinking of him as in a coaching role. I thought like, I can do this all myself. I don't need someone else. Like, I've got my own ideas. I just need someone to really help and support and give me the feedback that I'm looking for. But then as time went on, I realized how important it is to have someone who could, already has all this knowledge and could take more of a lead. So it was really great to have Sam around. And like by the end of that week, on that Thursday or Friday, I left 100% of the brewing, the water, the grinding, the organizing of the coffees, all of that stuff to him. Tom took care of everything else, and then I could just focus on the presentation and just pouring water. So this was actually what made that team so strong. I think that Sam could take over that for me, and I trusted him wholly and solely that whatever he was doing was great. It was going to be tasty. And in the build up to that, there was a lot of development of trust, sort of subconsciously in a way, because I think every time we were tasting stuff, he was like, yeah, what do you guys think? To Tom and to me, like, what do you want to do? And I was like, look, I only want to do what the team wants to do. So we all need to come to an agreement of this. So when we all had an agreement of what was good and what was tasty and the direction we wanted to go, then it was really easy to say, yep, cool, I trust you. Whatever you're doing, just do it. And there was at one point where I started grinding some coffee, and then I brewed some, and he was like, oh, did you do this? And I was like, oh, no, I didn't stir it. And he's like, oh, yeah, but did you wait this long? I was like, oh, no, I just brewed it. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. You just do everything. You take over. Like, you know more of what's going on now than I do. So it wasn't any point me trying to get involved. But he was also helping helping Tom out for a brewers competition in France. He sent some coffees over, and I remember the coffees were awesome. And I remember very vividly his generosity in spending time and talking about the competition, about the coffees with Tom. And then that stuck with me. And at that point I was like, okay, cool. This is definitely the right person to be in this little team. And he was very happy, I think, to join and to help out and to do another Brewers campaign. I think at least he appreciated like a new face and a different approach maybe, and like someone with the drive and the passion and alignment in the vision that we could work together with something on the world stage, and then hopefully achieve something great. I mean, there was a lot of shit talking back in the training center, but it was a lot of
fun. We'll go to training center. I have a few interesting questions. So I kind of want to just maybe share with everyone that's listening, is because I'm obviously being aware of this campaign, like some things that in Ona Coffee or Project Origin we love to do. We kind of call it, I don't know, we call it give back. So we feel that due to the competitions, we love our life. We don't have this maybe issues as what am I doing? Do I belong? Like things that we were discussing earlier. Like we're loving life with the fullest. We have great opportunities due to the comps. And in 2017, we sort of started, hey, we want to give back. And then the first give back kind of thing for us was when we approached Taga when we told her, hey, we'd love to coach you. And we called on April 1st. So she thought it's a Fool's Day, that we're just joking. So we needed to make sure we call her following this, and now we're actually serious. We'd love to help you. And then we continued this trend, obviously with Martin this year as well. But I was so happy when Sammy goes, because I'm in Sydney, and he goes, Sasha, I'd love to help someone. Like, should we continue doing this in Brewers? I said, yeah, 100%, absolutely. And he reached out, goes, what do you think of Matt? I said, I don't know Matt well. Like we had some interactions in Amsterdam, and he was very, very out there. So I'm not sure. But you've spoken to Matt, Matt, and you obviously, if you have a great feeling that if you feel that values align, as you mentioned, and if you feel that he has everything that it takes, not necessarily to win, because as you say, when you do this thing, it's, of course you're going there to win, but you're going there to make this team of the people that we work well together. And because when you have that strong synergy and strong team and everyone trusts each other, there's everyone knows what needs to happen, then you have so much fun doing it, and you kind of create something that's above expectations of each one of the individuals. And Sam got a lot out of it working with you, and he's obviously very appreciative. But yeah, I think it's a credit for both of you guys reaching out to each other and making that magnet to be unstoppable and very powerful. I do remember talking to Sam, even like 2, 3, 4 weeks before Milan. I said, hey, how is brew camp going? Because he was in Sydney, I was in Canberra. We were isolated, we couldn't see each other. So it was all phone calls. I'll update him what's happening with the barista camp. He'll update me what's happening with you guys. And he goes, yeah, presentation is coming, but it's slow. And I was a little bit kind of not necessarily worried. I said, well, is this normal? Because in a barista camp, we normally not necessarily more organized, but because there's probably a lot more stuff going on, you cannot really not have your barista competition preparation locked in, or you got to have it locked in 2, 3, 4 weeks before comp at least. Yeah. But your routine has not been locked in, what I believe.
No, it was all very subject to change constantly.
Yeah.
And I felt that was, that is also, I think, a strength of mine.
Yeah.
Even in 2019, I redid the whole routine 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
So like I had 1 week of training before flying to Boston, and the routine itself turned out okay, even though I didn't have an ending and I just sort of talked shit a little bit. But even still, I think that's a strength of mine to have, be able to adapt the routine quite quickly. But yeah, I knew that a lot of the stuff would be finalized once Sam and I got in the same room. So I wasn't super worried. So long as I had the idea in my head and we had the common, we're on the same page, then I knew that it was going to come together. We weren't fixed to anything, basically.
Yeah. And I remember like you had 6, 7 days together practicing in San Remo Academy, day and night.
So good.
And
shout out to those guys for letting us use that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a great atmosphere with you training upstairs, Hugh and a friend Martin downstairs. Charlie was kind of on a side cupping as well. So it was just, I believe, beautiful atmosphere. You not only won Brewers Comp, but you actually also won a bottle game, right? One of our challenging games.
The only one that you didn't film and put on Instagram as well, me beating all you guys.
I know, but this made you work harder for barista, because we wanted to make sure you can lift up the bigger trophy. But yeah, this is now publicly announced that yes, all of these bottle games we were playing in Milan, Matt took the big trophy as well. So yeah, well done for that. But yeah, if you can maybe I don't know, like I kind of want to ask you a question. You spoke a lot about Sam and saying that he would go in his room, do the blending, grinding, making the water, and he just gives you the coffee and off you go and brew, which is a bit like a lot of trust, huge amount of trust. For you to kind of say, hey, you go and do what you need to do. So it's a huge credit for you, for trusting. But I'm sure that Sam is not easy person to work with. And I wanna ask you, what's the most annoying thing working with Sam?
Oh, I found him incredibly pleasurable to work with. I think there was, if you said like, oh, I'm sure he's not an easy person to work with. I was like, no, he was fantastic. Okay. He's an absolute beast. I think we have like complementary ways of approaching things and doing things as well. Like he said that he thrives best under pressure and like everything's a little bit chaotic, and I'm very flexible with pressure, and if shit goes sideways then I'm like, okay, cool, we'll just do that. And this happened quite a bit during the competition, where things were just like a bit, nothing was landed, everything was just thrown up in the air and we were waiting for bits and pieces to land, metaphorically. And like, you know, his approach was like, all right, cool, let's do this, and then yeah, it'll be good, it'll be fine, don't worry. I was like, okay, if you say so, it'll be good, then fine, we're sweet. And I think that's what happens. Like you said before, it's like, you know, letting him do everything and trusting him. But that was forged after the full week before that of spending 12, 14 hours together, of just like working together and tasting together and becoming fully aligned and fully trusting each other at that point. But yeah, no, everything was great with Sam. It was awesome. I don't want to do another competition without Sam and Tom by my side. Like the team was great, because I also trusted Tom with everything. I knew that Tom, he also has a few in like quirky things of the way he works. Like he also has a need to go and do sports and, you know, just do his own thing for a few hours a day. And it was like, cool, I can't stop him from doing that. I think he should embrace that.
Yeah.
And then he took care of all of the packing of stuff. And it was like, all right, I can't interfere with the packing now because he has his way of doing it. And when he has his way of doing it, I don't want to interfere with it. So cool, I've got to trust him that he knows what he's doing and that he can get the job done in the end. And of course he can. So yeah, there was a lot of trust in the whole team as well. Like there was moments where me and Sam were like, fuck, we need more water. Tom, can you go get more water? He's like, yeah, okay, cool. And he'd disappear for 2 hours and then come back with some water. And like, you just got to trust that he's going to do it and it's going to be good.
So I remember you were talking when you lifted a big trophy. Obviously, we were cheering all and yelling and lost our voices. But then
it was such a good moment.
you like things that I remember. You said, you know, this is a team effort. You know, it's not individual sport. And we obviously resonate with that, and all of us. And I'm sure everyone that competes would know what we're talking about. But maybe if you can give a piece of advice for people that maybe not necessarily had a coach, or it's not that then someone needs to have a coach, but someone that's competing and they would love to have a team around you. Like, in your opinion, how to look for that, you know, coach or mentor or support member like Tom. Like what's the perfect team in your opinion?
The perfect team is Tom and Sam. For sure.
Do you need two people in a team, in your opinion, or more or less? And what are the jobs and responsibilities?
Yeah, I always thought that I didn't need a coach and I didn't need a big team around me. I felt like I did everything myself for all the competitions. But then looking back on it, of course, there were people there that just at the time I didn't acknowledge for the most that they did, like the full work that they did. In 2018 and 2019, I had people helping me backstage. I had people, especially Pierre at the Worlds, a friend of mine living up in Stockholm, and he helped me so much. And I couldn't have done it without him, but I didn't realize it, how important that he was at the time. So I think when I was thinking, like after what I said in the finals, like in the announcements and stuff, right before I went on stage and like called time, like I was standing on stage just waiting, there was a couple of moments there where I just remember turning around and like just like looking to nothing and just thinking like, fuck, these guys, Sam and Tom, both have worked their asses off to make this what it is. They've spent hours doing the brewing, the grinding, everything. They're back there, they're working hard. And like, all I have to do now is pour water into coffee and say some words. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing this for them. I don't give a shit about anything else right now. I don't give a shit about myself, about titles, about whatever, but I'm doing this for those guys because they've worked so hard for this, and I can't let them down. And I think that sort of a mateship and that sort of a bond is something that just comes from time and an alignment of values and the vision like we had, because like we didn't spend a lot of time, Sam and I, but it was enough. But Tom and I, we've been friends for a very long time. If there's the first person I think of with competition is Tom. He's so passionate and so into it and so knowledgeable. And again, that's also a relationship that's come with time. So I have firstly this person in my life who's a very close friend who has, a total, he's totally into competition. He's just like, bam, 100% in there. He's knows all the trends. He knows all the coffees of every competitor from the last 3 years. He just knows everything about it. He's fully into it. So having someone like that also competes, that you can rely on for a lot of things. And then I think the role that Sam came to play was someone that was much better at doing what I did. He does have a lot more knowledge in brewing and roasting than I do. And I think I almost didn't want to realize or admit to myself that I needed someone to show me what to do, because every other time I figured it out for myself. And I did. And this time, instead of figuring out for ourselves, like Tom and I would just go and train and figure things out and spend hours doing it. We didn't have that time. So all of that 7 days or 6 days that we spent with Sam training for the open service, he taught us what we would have learnt in 6 months or a year. So it actually was really nice to have someone who knew a lot more about what was going on than what I did. So I think that's those two elements can make up a really good team. A very close friend who's also into competition. And Tom also has the ability to know what I need to hear at what time, because we've spent so much time together. And, when I'm doubting myself or when I'm being stupid, he can just, set me straight. And Sam, who knows a lot more than I do about this particular topic of brewing coffee, and can provide insight, or someone you can trust that will get the job done and will make it tasty without you having to second guess, without you having to micromanage. They're just like doing it. But he also is the kind of character that wouldn't want to put himself on what you're doing. So he's just like there to support and to make the most out of you, instead of him being the star. It's not like, oh, don't do that, we have to do it this way, but like, hey, we'll do whatever you want, let's try it this way and see what you think.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, have that, if you can say, coach or mentor, that hey, they've done the hard yards, they've gone through it, and they know how it's done, and you can have the mentor to help you to sort of grow very fast in very short time. But like as you also mentioned, really, really important is that that mentor digs deeper in you and helps you to be a better version of you, rather than just do this and because obviously that's the only way that's going to get best out of you. But I love how you also spoken about Tom, because sometimes we underestimate people when they clean a cutlery, or when they polish the glasses, when they go and get the water, and like you think it's just given that someone is going to do that for you. But also being a close friend, and them understanding your highs and lows and ups and downs, they can do so much. I do remember, like even in Seattle when I competed, and being really sick in the semifinals, and Sam would wake up 6 o'clock in the morning to go for morning run to buy me fresh juice, because I used to drink fresh juices when I compete again a lot. And he would find a spot, and by 7:30 he'd be back with the juice. And then you wake up and you see that. And of course, when you go there and compete, you compete for the team, you compete for the people. Like it's but that gives you that extra energy, and that's but that's most important, the reason why these people have helped you, because you kind of want to give back, as opposed to, hey, I'm here to take. And I'm sure you had a very similar experience when you were representing the Katukai, which of course I'm very familiar with the farm, and it's a beautiful coffee. And we kind of sometimes, when we talk about these competitions, of course brewers are heroes, the baristas are heroes, but we don't give enough credits to the real heroes, which are the farmers. And I do 100%. Know that you visited the farm, you processed the coffees. I've seen the photos that you were sending us as well. So it was a nice thing that, as you mentioned, the brewers started like a fun, but at the end it wasn't a fun project. Like it was a fun project, but you've gone really deep and you've done anything you possibly could to reach out and to maximize your coffee, even being there and processing the coffee yourself, which was amazing. And on the other hand, I do know when we have received that extended fermentation yeast, the Yuji, And
Yeah.
Sammy goes, "How is it?" Because we were obviously gearing a coffee for Hugh Kelly, and I said, "Well, it's not
Yeah.
espresso, but this can be good. This can be good for you guys, for for Brewtown team." So we sent the coffee to
For
him in
sure.
Sydney, and then obviously you guys found it useful, which kind of says it again that it's a huge effort, and there's so many people behind to to kind of make this happen. But maybe for
100%.
last
That,
year,
yeah.
for last few words, Matt, what's next for you now? Like, obviously you are world brewers champion, and you have this, the whole world is gonna be watching you. You have this big responsibility to be ambassador for next 12 months or till September next year, actually. So quite few months. So what do you want to do till for next 12 months?
I mean, I think just to quickly touch back on what you said about the UG, that's one thing that I want to do. I want to visit the guys at Immaculata and give my thanks back to the work that they've done. So I definitely on the list is to do that. I think that visiting Fabrizio at La Florida is awesome, and I was super grateful to do that. And I want to go back again and share the win with them. So that's something that's really important to go to Origin and to meet more of the people behind there. I think the time in Milan was so chaotic for me, even when the guys from Immaculata were there and I was talking to them. I just wasn't present enough to be able to be like, thank you. I said the words, but it was a different feeling to being like, hey, thanks for making this coffee. This is, I want to spend some quality time there with them, at least a few days of getting to know them and understanding more of it. I think that's something that's very important to me. Otherwise, like, hey, I'll be around and I'll be at the expos and doing all of the things that a champion does, doing talks and things like that. But I think I just want to be around and be there for people and be involved in the scenes. I think that's something that's sort of missing in the last 12 months because of COVID a lot. But there hasn't been these people who I mean, it still sounds weird because I still don't see myself as any different from the day before the announcements to the day after, but other people do. So I have to sort of acknowledge that now I'm important, sort of thing. But if other people value my presence and having a chat with me, and we can share a coffee with someone in a random cafe in somewhere, then I think that's really cool as well. I will be doing some projects with roasting myself, which is really cool. I'm looking forward to that. So that will hopefully be around the start of next year, by March, April, sometime around then, which was again only off of the back of the win, where we did have a project for roasting, but it was more focused on like wholesale and espresso based. And then now we came up with an idea to do more high end filters, retail, stuff like this, which I'm really looking forward to, because basically the model there is like whatever coffees I want to drink and my business partner Fredo wants to drink and we love, then we will buy those and we'll share those. So it's something very, very personal. And along with this business also comes the opportunity to employ someone else and have them in a role that supports this project, which I really like. I love the ability to be able to empower people to be the best version of themselves, and can step into a role that maybe isn't available for everyone in the world. So, there's a lot of cool little things happening like this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of little projects, and I think there's just going to be a little bit everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's so nice to hear. But yeah, and also we would love to host you in Australia. So we'd love to have you here as well, and hopefully you can inspire some people in Australia as well, and and the team here. It would be amazing. But I guess to finish off,
For sure.
I think you've been great ambassador so far. I've seen a lot of your socials that you spend a lot of time with a lot of people and taking your time and making sure they enjoy the coffee, and you don't necessarily just go there for quick photo or whatever, but you really give them some of your genuine time. I really love what you said. Hey, let's go to Origin and to celebrate, to thank and to meet these people, because we always think that, or at least I think they're the real heroes, and very often under the radar. So, kind of putting them in the front line, it's beautiful, humbling. But yeah, I'm sure you're gonna do so many more great things for all of us and inspire so many more people. And through your work ethics and with your attitude and with your now leadership, and as you mentioned, empower so many more people as well. So it's been pleasure, spending time with you in Milan and seeing
Yeah,
you.
it was nice. Thank you,
Seeing
Sasha.
you, all of these things, and I hope to talk to you very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot yourself, man. Not only for the podcast, but also everything else that you guys have done as well.